So this is the last day of our positive psychology program, and thank you so much for joining me on the program. So one of the aims of positive psychology is to increase psychological resilience. And resilience refers to the ability to cope with whatever life throws at us. Sometimes life gives us huge challenges, and I think that's happening for a lot of us at the current time. And even in the face of these challenges, we bounce back. And that's what we call psychological resilience. And fortunately, this is something that we can set our sights on developing and increasing across the lifespan. It's not something we're born with, it's something we learn to develop. And these techniques can be really useful in developing resilience. So we know it's good to make small changes, kind of one at a time, taking small steps. And by doing the techniques that we've outlined, what we're really trying to do is create practices that actually change structure and function in the brain. I have a tickle in my throat today, excuse me. So what we know from neuroscience is that when we repeat experiences, that the neurons in the brain, the neurons that fire together, wire together. So it's really important to take these practices and keep doing them. So just running through a brief summary of the practices. The first one we did was on self-care. Did you get a chance to do a vision board? Did you get a chance to really elucidate for yourselves what really good self-care looks like, particularly at this time? And, have you put in habits or practices there that have increased self-care? We then moved on to day 2, which was gratitude. And that's really about a change in consciousness. This human proclivity to focus on the things that we don't have, the things that we want more of, the things that are not working properly for us, the challenges we face. Whereas gratitude moves us into a different space where we have a momentary awareness of something that we are so grateful for. And we train our brain to do that more and more, or we do it through a journal at night time. We moved from gratitude on to self-compassion, and this is something I see in the clinic all the time. People who are fantastic people with so many competencies and great hearts, and they are so self-critical and they are so hard on themselves. So learning self-compassion, like Brené Brown saying to the inner critic, oh yeah, you can take a ringside seat, but I won't be listening to you. And just putting the hands on the heart and forgiving yourself everything and embracing yourself and soothing yourself. That's deep self-compassion. And I've actually seen clients in the clinic who have really changed just by putting that practice in alone, especially if you're someone who's a maximizer or a perfectionist or it lives by what Karen Horney called the tyranny of the shoulds. So we moved on then from gratitude and self-compassion to emotional regulation, and we looked at the poem by Rumi and the idea that our emotions are like visitors in a guest house, and that some of these visitors are very unpleasant and we would never have invited them in, but they're there, and that actually if we just allow them to be there, that they will in time leave. So and I think we're hearing a lot this term, this too shall pass. So it's a little bit the same idea, that just allow them, these visitors and these really strong difficult emotions, to be present, knowing that they will move on. Excuse me. So we move then from emotional regulation. Well, just on that point, how have your emotions been, and what have been your predominant emotions, and have some of them been very intense? And if so, has this awareness of emotional regulation and the transience of emotions, has that actually helped you? So moving on from emotional regulation, we looked at character strengths. Did you get a chance to go to the Values in Action website, the VIA, and identify your top strengths? They have 24 strengths there, very clearly delineated. And, when hopefully this pandemic will pass soon, but we will go back to lives that are quite altered. and where society is going to have to just really come together to rebuild economies and rebuild businesses and support each other. And all of us have strengths to bring to that process, and actually knowing what those strengths are is just really, really useful, because we're more likely to use them and to have a clearer sense of a direction and a higher probability of goal attainment if we know what our strengths are. We then moved on to loving kindness, which kind of speaks to itself for itself, and on then to the best possible self, where we all have this sense of empowerment and a place where, even if our mental health is challenged, where we feel strong and capable and confident, happy and engaged, and a place where we feel like we are really the best that we can be, and accessing that best part of ourselves. It's just really helpful to do, to keep locating that part of us. So that's suggested that you do that a couple of times a day over a couple of weeks. We then moved on to presence. Science shows us that consciously embracing moments of daily life and being fully present leads us to increased happiness. So we looked at practicing being present, and then we looked at sleep and whether you're really getting enough rest and sleep at night time. Change takes time. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. You could do each day, choose a different theme, spend a whole day on self-compassion, or a whole day on being fully present, or a whole day on just being grateful for all the beautiful things that you can think of in that day. Or you could spend a week on each theme. But as I was saying, the neurons that fire together wire together. So the more you do these practices and the more you make them part of who you are, and part of your consciousness, the more you can develop your resilience. So I hope these techniques have been really helpful to you. I've really enjoyed delivering the program. And you'll find my details on vicohealth.ie. If anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to me in any way, you can certainly contact me through vicohealth.ie. So many thanks for being part of this program.